All right. We are here with Heather Farmer, who has just an extensive expertise in sport performance and sport science in general. And she is our director of the Switch Sport Science Studio here at UNLV. Hi, Heather. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing good. Thanks so much for taking time out of your day. I know you're busy testing athletes even now. I mean, it's a 7 day a week, 24-hour day a job, and 365 days out of the year you're doing something, right?
It is. It's exciting, but yes, so we got a lot going on with athletics right now.
I love it. Well, thanks for coming on and talking today about communication amongst the sport performance team in general. And that's something that is so important is that, understanding human performance, we need all these different perspectives. And not only do we need the different perspectives, we need to be able to talk to each other. And that's not always easy. And I'm interested in hearing about some of your ways that you've been very successful with the UNLV program. But before we get into that, talk a little bit more about the position you're in, how you got to this position.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a little bit more of a strength and conditioning background. So going all the way back to even undergrad, I knew I wanted to do something sport related. I wasn't quite sure what that was going to entail. So I started to do some internships, kind of fell into the strength and conditioning world, really loved being in the weight room, high energy, high intensity, working with student athletes, high performers. So I went through, I was a graduate assistant at Lindenwood University for strength and conditioning. So I got to work with a multitude of the teams there. About actually halfway through that graduate assistant position, I accepted the assistant director of strength and conditioning role here at UNLV. So I came over this way and I worked with just about every team on campus, kind of rotating through. Finished my graduate degree, my master's degree in the kinesiology department here at UNLV. And then 4 years ago, started to transition into a little bit of a dual role for sports science as well as S&C. And then moving full time into our assistant athletics director role. So I oversee all things sports science in the athletic department here at the university.
That is fantastic and amazing how you've gotten into this. But I got to ask you, what is your sport background?
I played soccer at the University of North Alabama.
Oh
So
my goodness.
grew up playing all the sports, but that was the only one that stuck. So soccer is near and dear to my heart for sure.
Oh, I love it. And is that what sort of got you into your academic career is playing sport and then finding some academic pathways?
Absolutely. So my junior year of college, I tore my ACL the first 6 minutes of preseason.
Oh
So
no.
I immediately started spending more time in the weight room and doing some of those things. And then kind of rehabs. And then my redshirt senior year, so my fifth year, about 15 minutes into that extra year where I stayed, tore the other ACL. So I ended up diving headfirst into an internship under Aaron Feld, who most people in the strength and conditioning world know. He's a high energy football guy. So
Yeah.
I spent all of my time in that internship and came to just love being in that environment, in the weight room, and again in that high performance. So what was at the time, in my opinion, devastating, catastrophic. When you're 18 or 19, whatever, you can't see past that at all ended up being the absolute catapult for my career and put me in the amazing position that I am today. So it's funny how things work out, how you can't see in those moments, it seems worst case scenario, and then you look back and you're like, wow, that
Right.
was the turning point for me.
Oh, that great story. I love that. And you're right that you don't know what's going to lead you into your academic career and then now your professional career. And so it's sort of a neat sport connection. Can you talk a little bit about sports science has evolved since you've been involved with it, even myself? I mean, it's really the last 5, 10 years. It's just really sort of blossomed as a career path, I guess. But that didn't exist originally when you started down this path. So, as you look back now, what types of educational opportunities do you think students should be taking advantage of if they're interested in getting into sports science?
I think from an educational standpoint, it is my personal philosophy that the degree is only half the battle. The
Mm,
opportunities that you create for yourself, the internships, the shadowing, speaking with mentors, speaking with a multitude of different people, that's where you're going to help find what you really love. I was going through my academic career. I kept it fairly general in my undergraduate degree. It was exercise science, but I still didn't know what I wanted. It wasn't until I did an internship with strength and conditioning, started speaking to people in the field, that I really knew this is kind of where I wanted to take it, where I wanted to go. And then obviously, like you said, the sports science side has just absolutely grown over the last 5 years. It didn't necessarily exist when I was starting out, but uh, pivoting from strength and conditioning is where I got that. But in that academic world, my big advice to students is always find a way to be in the mix. You're
Yeah.
not going to learn what you love in a textbook. You're going to learn how to execute skills, how to find the different things that you need to be able to do. But
Mm,
you can't find where you're passionate. You can't find what's going to light you up every day when you go to work unless you go and experience the opportunities, talk to people, find the good and the bad.
yeah.
No job has no bad, right? Every job has those days where you're just pulling your hair out.
Yeah.
You have to love what you do, though, to make those things worth it. So, internships and even shadowing, I've got students that come see what I'm doing for the day just to kind of see if this is even something that they enjoy. So, involvement is my big advice.
That is great advice. I love you even mentioned the bad because if there is the bad and someone doesn't like it, that's okay. They can find something else to do, and maybe that's
Exactly.
not the path for them. So, wonderful advice. Speaking of day to day stuff, what does a day to day routine look like for you? Is there even a typical day to day for you?
Some things are typical. There are certain aspects of the day that are fairly routine. One thing I love about my job is it is organized chaos because you don't know exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Some of our daily tasks, we live tag all of our student athlete practices. So my team's going out to practices. We're giving feedback to coach real time via GPS and heart rate monitoring that's happening. So some of that is more standard. I'm pulling information from the training week. So the big thing with sports science is the individualization that we're able to provide. So for instance, after this call, I get to dive in and go through the weekly reflection of last week for one of our teams. I'll see which players hit specific loads, which might need more, which might need less. We do regular force plate monitoring for fatigue and readiness as well. So those are staples of our day where we're going around to different facilities, testing athletes, giving feedback. That's information that needs to be readily available immediately.
Mhm.
So the day to day for that is so important that we're jump testing them and then we're providing that feedback. We're usually meeting with coaches. I have developed a high performance team meeting model within our athletic department for most of our teams where we get all of our performance
Mhm.
pillars together. We don't just use the buzzword holistic. We really try and create a truly holistic approach
Yeah.
that can only be done if everyone has a seat at the table. So those meetings are pretty staple on my day to day.
Mhm.
But when you are operating a lab or you're working with, again, these are humans that we operate with outside, you never know what you're going to get. So technology fails, coaches need more, athletes need more. You kind of got to see what your day looks like as you're going through it.
I love it. Well, and you mentioned the high performance team. I want to dive into that a little bit more, but before jumping into that, even what you just were talking about with the technical stuff, what type of technical and non-technical skills should students develop as they get into this line of work?
From a technical standpoint, base level statistics, analytics, you want to know how to use Excel, use Google Sheets. I don't expect all of my interns and my staff to be able to do a deep dive in advanced statistics. I expect you to be able to know how to leverage technology to do some of those things for you. What do the outputs mean? Can you communicate that, understand that? So that's always going to be from a base level, integrating and learning the most prominent GPS, heart rate, different diagnostic tests. Those are some of your basics. There are various ways to do a VO2 test, right? There's different technologies, but do you understand what that is and what we're looking for from a base level? I think as you go through, that's where academic meets practical application oftentimes. I just need you to kind of understand what those skills are more so than being able to run them immediately. And then as you go through your career, you'll find that certain technologies have crossover. They just call them different things. They label variables slightly different. But if you have that foundation, I think the perfect, this entire conversation is centered around communication. That is the skill. That is the skill more so than any. anything else, all of the technical ability I could bring to the table means absolutely nothing if I can't communicate it effectively. So that is and always will be my number one skill that I ask my team to continue to work on and develop. My entire career will be spent and centered around how do I effectively communicate this information?
Mm. Oh, yeah, I love it. Well, okay, so now let's dive into that a little bit more. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the communication part amongst your performance team, but then also how you communicate with athletes, coaches, practitioners, sports team physicians, what have you.
So, in my opinion, sports science is the filter. They are the data hub. We disseminate all of the information. So, first and foremost, you have to have a foundational knowledge of all of the performance pillars. At UNLV, our performance pillars are our coaches, our sports medicine, we have sports psychology, our dietitians, we have our strength and conditioning staff, and we have the sports scientist. So, I have to be able to effectively communicate to each of those pillars, which starts with a foundation of knowing again, general information for each of their areas. I
Hmm.
am not the sports medicine expert. I'm not the medical staff member, but I need to know enough about their performance pillar to have dialogues on return to play, to understand the different phases. Same with our dietitians, right? I have a CSCS, and half of that accreditation is with nutrition, but I do not call myself a nutritionist or a dietitian. I just have the foundational knowledge to be able to communicate with that performance pillar.
Hmm.
So from us and from our standpoint as sports scientists, you've got to be able to have those dialogues. You have to know enough about what they're doing just to get their expertise and pull it together.
Mm.
I
I love that. Well, and maybe let's dive a little deeper on that part where you're doing sports science.
Yep.
And you and I both know that sometimes science scares people. But what strategies do you use to make the science understandable, practical, and even identifying actionable items for athletes, coaches, or physicians?
I have found immediately in my experience that you just hit the nail on the head. People see the word science or scientist and they think that's not what I do.
Mhm.
That's so far out of my league. But they don't even realize that they're practicing science every day. Our strength and conditioning team, who evaluates where an athlete's at. They hypothesize where they can take them. They are going to write a program to try and get them there. They're going to test, they're going to evaluate along the way. They're going to pivot. They're doing this. They're following a scientific method throughout their entire career, but they don't even realize it. It's the same with
Mhm.
our dietitians. They meet with our athletes, they assess, then they make a plan of action, they test, they try and take the information where the athlete got. It's communicating to them that they're already doing these things. We're just helping pull out some of the ideas and we are adding objectivity and structure to a lot of this. So,
Mhm.
from a communication standpoint, A, bring everyone to the table. That will always be my first message. Bring as many people to the table as possible. I am so fortunate to work with some of the best in the field here. We have developed such a strong, high performance team. But on
Mhm.
top of that, I want to hear from all of them because if you've got five absolute top of the line professionals at the table, the ideas that are flowing are always going to be extraordinary. So if
Mhm.
I can get everyone together, if we have one rehabilitation we're doing and five of the best minds in the field, that athlete is going to get the best of the best care because we're all generating ideas. But when it comes to communication, I think you've got to meet people where they're at. You've got to know where they're coming from. You've got to know their background, and you've got to help them pull out some of the ideas they have. So, from an objective standpoint, when you're asking, how do we decide what we're looking for? How do we decide the plan of action? Oftentimes, when you start the conversation, you can help somebody formulate the words for what they're trying to communicate. They have the idea, they just don't know exactly our world. So, the main job is trying to help educate them on what they already know, they just don't know they know it. How do we pull that out of them?
I think that's so important, and that's so neat that you're in tune with that because, I think of coaches. Coaches have a lot of great information that can get worked back into an athlete assessment, and you merge the science with the coaches' knowledge. How do you pull out the coaches' expertise? How do you work that into your assessment of athletes?
I think the biggest thing right off the bat is coaches make all the decisions in my world. And that's going to be, again, professional setting, high school setting, collegiate setting, club setting, any of that. the end of the day, the coach makes the decision. If they are not on board with what you're doing, it doesn't matter what you're doing. They're the ones I'm at practice with my iPad telling them what the load is. But if they don't want to hear from me, they're going to keep going or they're going to do exactly what they want to do. So you have to establish a little bit of trust with them first. So again, that goes back to know where they're coming from, know their background. I always start my introductions with coaching staff on what were some of the big hurdles physically last year that you would like to overcome this year? Where can I help you? There are
Mm,
certain things I can't help with, tactical information, right? Actual skill set for an athlete. But I want to hear from them. What were your biggest physiological hurdles? Great. Here's where I think I can help. Then you're serving them. The
mm.
biggest thing is to remind yourself that you chose a servant position. I serve my student athletes and I serve my coaching staff. If I'm not taking in what they're looking for, what am I doing? Right? I'm patting myself on the back and I'm running myself in circles.
Mm.
So when you establish and let them tell you where they're hoping to go, you build a little bit of trust. Then you start to really help build their program. They see a couple of success stories in their student athletes. That trust builds, that trust builds, that trust builds. They start to understand some of the performance metrics and the verbiage that you're using. Next thing you know, you're 2, 3 years down the line with that coach. I've got a couple examples here where they're now having full dialogue on the sports science side, things that they thought they would never have an interest in or understand because the word science was scary. You hear us in the hallway and the chatter that goes back and forth, and they will blow your mind. And you think, oh, that coach is so well trained. Well, no, I just built that perfect relationship with them where I'm learning from them, they're learning from me, and now you've got this perfect unified group.
Oh, I love that because you're right. You know, you have to work with the coach in order to determine what to even measure. So there is this back and forth of knowledge. That's great. Maybe talk a little bit more. You know, science. There's so much instrumentation and there's so much data crunching. What are the effective ways of communicating out to others, either on your performance team or the broader spectrum of people you work with? How do you take all that data and make it understandable?
There's an overwhelming amount, and I think honestly, oftentimes a lot of it becomes fluff. You
Mm,
end up reporting 4 or 5 things that really say the same thing. So knowing your audience first and foremost, I actually will send for my women's basketball program alone 4 or 5 different reports out. So our coaching staff wants something very simple. So visualization is going to be key here. They want it color coded and they want minimal information. So they're looking for, did we do what we wanted to do? Give me a little note section on if we didn't, where we need to improve.
mm,
That's the extent of what they're looking for. My medical team for that particular program wants all the details. They want the nitty gritty. So their report looks a little bit different. It has some visualization specific in it, but there's a lot more tables, charts, information. We're looking at running asymmetry, deviations. We're looking at different force plate metrics, as
mm,
well as your general, do we hit load? Do we not hit load? From a strength and conditioning standpoint, they want some of that, but they're looking more at performance markers versus, injury risk stratification. Our dietitians are tracking a little bit different as well because they're looking at body composition changes. So they want to know training load, they want to know force outputs, they want to make sure the athlete's in a good spot from a nervous system standpoint if they're making modifications. So all of these things, I got to know the audience, and then I'm going to paint the picture, keep it as simple as possible, regardless of the information. The second that it gets too crazy, you'll see examples of graphs and printouts. I try and keep it to a one pager unless it needs to be an in-depth conversation. But if
mm,
I can't talk about it and I'm just sending off a document, one page, color coded, clear visualizations, minimal reported metrics as possible.
mm.
That's kind of the visualization strategy that we take here. And then we converse when we need to go into more in-depth detail.
Oh, I love it. And that's quite a skill set, even just creating all those visualizations. So what type of programs do you use? That's the Excel and some other things that you use, or
Yeah, so depending on where you go, your career trajectory, they're going to have a multitude of different options. I'd love to add an AMS system, athlete monitoring system, full go here. So those systems are actually really cool because they'll pull all the technology in together. So oftentimes you'll have the Power BI. At our university, we actually don't have the license for that. The
mm,
biggest system or the biggest thing that we need when we provide these systems is immediate feedback. So the best option for us currently is using something as simple as a Google Sheets because all of my staff can log on from a multitude of different areas and we can see live feedback. So I can generate force plate information. They can use drop downs to look through different athlete feedbacks. Excel has way more capabilities, but the problem
Mhm.
with that is they don't want a PDF. They don't want me to just send a
Yeah.
PDF every day. We do that once a week as a recap, but on the day to day, they want something they can go through and kind of, we'll call it the click and play themselves. They can move and manipulate what they are looking at doing. So
Mhm.
giving them the opportunity to have some autonomy, Google Sheets currently is our best option.
Okay. Oh, I love it. All right. So it's the skill set. Communication is a skill set. Well, maybe some inherent stuff, but we have to learn these things. What can students do to learn these communication skills amongst these different partners? What is it? Presentations? Is it? I know the involvement, which I love that advice. But what else could students be doing to prep for learning communication skills?
I think presentations are an absolute fantastic one. So again, speaking personally, even in my undergraduate degree, I don't think I valued that skill set high enough. I didn't create enough opportunities for myself to get involved in research, present at one of the conferences, even if it's small, start out, see where you can present in front of groups, whether it's clubs, whether it's, that's an opportunity that I didn't even know really existed. But here we have some operating clubs on campus that are constantly looking for educational lectures, having the chance to go do that. The other thing I think that you pick up as well when I talked about the involvement and meeting with different people, we all communicate slightly different because we come from different backgrounds. My communication style and skill set is an absolute hodgepodge of all of the people that I've worked with. I think everybody that you interact with, you're going to either take that's a skill I'm going to do and I'm going to include in myself, or that's something I'm definitely not going to do and I'm not going to include. But either way, I have grown from that.
Hmm.
So having the opportunity to even just speak with your professors, it doesn't have to be somebody that's exactly in the field that you want, but listen to the way they speak, the way that they present, what resonates with you. How can you take that into your setting? Conferences is going to be great. So don't just listen to content, listen to delivery. Try and pick up on what resonates and how you best hear, how you best receive. Communication isn't just the way that I'm speaking, it's the
Hmm.
visualizations I'm providing. It's going to be the speed, the tempo. I'm very animated. As you can probably see, my hands go a lot when I speak. I'm an in-person person. So when given the opportunity, I want to have those conversations in person. Some people are not. So you've got to have a vast skill set though. Can you send the email? I think that that's a communication skill right off the bat when you're applying for jobs or even just reaching out. The uh, the unsung hero of I can send an email that I'm going to get a response to. So find the bravery to reach out and have those conversations in a multitude of different ways.
Hmm. Oh, I love it. What a great message. And this is such a, I think, overlooked within our degree programs is developing this type of skill set. So thank you for coming on and talking about this, the importance of being able to communicate. I love your advice for students. Get involved, get immersed in the area to figure out if you like it or if you don't like it or what your gaps are in education. So, and just a wonderful presentation of what it's like to be part of and lead a performance team.
Absolutely. Grateful for the opportunity. These are the things that when I was a student, I really was looking forward to and growing from. So I'm always happy to have that.
Well, you've always been generous with your time on doing conversations like this, and thank you for doing it for this topic. So, Heather, have a great rest of the day, and thank you for all the work you're doing with UNLV athletics.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.